I'll catch you guys when I get to Alien Force.
What? What the? Hey. Stupid watch. You're not even a watch. Where, Badger? Tell me. What year is it?
It's 2020, you damn shit.
2020? Ah, damn it. A whole year? I thought Oh. Hi, guys. I am the Guardian, and this is the bleak future. So far. But, on the bright side, if you're seeing this, then that means my Ben 10 Alien Force video is finally done. It only took me a fucking year, right? Well, you guys go ahead and enjoy the video. Well, I've got other things that I've got to take care of.
Bitch, you ain't got shit to do.
Shut up, Werebadger. Hope you guys enjoy, and you can expect a pattern to form with these videos.
Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and others. I am the Guardian, and welcome to another rerun. It's hero time yet again. As some of you may be aware of, I posted a video where I went on an in-depth discussion about the TV series known as Ben 10. Specifically, the classic Ben 10 series from 2005 to 2008. I mentioned how I considered it to be a classic, and not many of the follow-ups could ever compare to it. I am not changing my consensus on that, but hey, we've got a sequel series to get through. Let's talk about Ben 10 Alien Force. Oh, right. Update, given what happens with this. Alright, let's just move on. Alien Force was a sequel to the original Ben 10 series, which aired in 2008 and ended in early 2010. Like its predecessor, it was created by Man of Action and produced by Cartoon Network. Although, interesting fact is that the original title for this series was supposed to be Hero Generation. Yeah, I prefer Alien Force 2. This particular part of the Ben 10 series lasted 3 seasons and a total of 46 episodes plus a live-action movie before the end of its run. Regardless of any criticisms I will have about the series, that is still quite an accomplishment by any TV show standards. But enough delaying the inevitable. Let's jump right in. 5 years later, Ben 10's back. The first season of Alien Force was mostly focused on setting up its own story, which would last until the end of Season 2, and a new set of episodes beginning in Season 3. And what is that story? Well, the first 2 episodes, appropriately titled Ben 10 Returns, introduces us to a species of aliens called the Hybrids, a race of decently designed aliens who want to rule the universe for what other reason than to, you guessed it, take over the universe.
Of course!
Okay, it's actually a little bit more complex than that. See, they're actually supremacists, seeing themselves as the highest form of evolution, as they like to put it, in the universe, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. This hybrid and his underling discuss how Max Tennyson had been causing trouble for them lately and that they've dealt with him before. Now, being me, I'd normally question this, but given that Max's past has been hidden in shadows before, and that he's had connections to Vligax and even the Forever Knights, it's not that hard to believe he's made some enemies. Even in Secrets of the Omnitrix, Tetrax mentions that Max going with them would be too dangerous, given how much of a history he has being a plumber.
Sorry, Max. We can't run the risk of some alien somewhere recognizing you.
I understand.
So the fact that Max has been a major badass throughout his life like this, to the point where he's made enemies with hundreds, if not thousands of alien races, is actually kinda cool. After a bit of information, we get into the theme song, which I'm only now realizing that I forgot to mention in the last video. Oops. Basically, the classic Ben 10 theme song is a cartoon intro I won't soon forget. The lyrics and the pop that the music has sends a thrill of excitement throughout your body. Plus, it's catchy as hell.
He's slimy, freaky, fast and strong. He's every shape and size. He's Ben 10.
I even liked the rock version of this theme song in Ben 10 Race Against Time. However, the theme song for Alien Force was one of the first examples I had of a lyricless theme song in a cartoon. Aside from this, I was mostly used to Batman and Justice League as other forms of lyricless themes, but the show itself was so good that I chose to ignore it. But aside from that, I usually prefer to have my cartoon theme songs to have something I can sing along to. You know what I mean. Now, seeing as I've grown older and matured through time, I've gotten over that. Well, grown older, yes. Matured? I don't know. But the Alien Force theme is fine, it's just not that spectacular. I mean, listen. See what I mean? Like the classic theme song, however, it gives you a glimpse of the aliens Ben can transform into, with the exception of the one at the end, which I will get into later as we proceed through Season 1. Next, we cut ahead to Benjamin Kirby Tennyson. Yeah, I forgot to mention his middle name in the last video, too. Whom is in the midst of a soccer game, which his team wins. And I can't tell what it is, but there's something different about him. Oh my gosh! He doesn't have the Omnitrix on his wrist! Oh, and he's a teenager. Yep, a sequel series indeed, complete with a 5-year time skip. This time around, Ben is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal. You know, these guys.
Now he's gone with the thunderclap. Neptune's beard. I don't need any help from the Boy of Steel.
I was wondering what a guy had to do to get a little attention around here.
Oh, holy hard nipples, it's cold.
Says the guy frantically erasing his search history.
Yeah, I was as surprised as you are. Anyways, Ben meets up with a girl named Julie, whom I'll get more into when she becomes more prominent as the series goes on. They exchange small talk before Ben heads off to see Grandpa Max. Unfortunately, Max isn't there, and Ben has an encounter with what's later called a DNA alien. Get it? This thing has a pretty intimidating design. The purple and yellow go surprisingly well together, its innards double as tentacles, plus it has enhanced strength, speed, and it can stick to walls. Fortunately for Ben, however, it's not that bright and is easily scared off by fire extinguishers.
Peekaboo!
Ben does a bit of snooping and finds a recording of Max where he says that he has the Omnitrix. Being Ben, he runs home to double check to see that it is still in his box of summer collectibles.
What are you trying to tell me, Grandpa?
So, what does this mean? We then cut over to Gwen, now played by Ashley Johnson, who is in the midst of a martial arts match. I didn't mention much about the kid's trip to the future in the last video, but...
That black belt you were wondering about? You got it years ago. And it's come in handy many times.
You gotta give him props for continuity. This time, there are still some major hiccups later down the line. But we'll get there. Gwen listens to Ben's woes and concerns about Grandpa Max, which leads to him putting the Omnitrix back on, which displays how much Ben has matured through his 5 years off-screen. I mean, he is willing to sacrifice the normal life that he has in order to save someone he loves. That shows true growth and dedication. But it does raise the question of how he got the Omnitrix off in the first place. Well, given that in Season 2 of the original series, Vligax had a device that forcibly ripped the Omnitrix off his arm with a great deal of effort. And given the significant amount of plumber tech that exists with them being a large organization, it's easy to believe that the plumbers either had or built a device to remove the Omnitrix for Ben when he wanted to. Oh, and I guess he gave up baseball in those 5 years, too.
How am I supposed to play Little League this fall if I charcoal the ball every time I catch a pop fly?
After a little misunderstanding with another plumber agent, no, I didn't skip ahead in the script, this is literally how it plays out. Gwen's fight, cut ahead to night, Omnitrix talk, alien misunderstanding, then he puts the Omnitrix back on. Okay, that was my bad. Now with Fishy as a part of their party, they head over to a deal in progress between the Forever Knights and... Kevin. Kevin 11, good to see you, buddy. Last I checked, you were stuck in the Null Void. And still mutated. Okay, it's explained later that in the Null Void, as he grew up, he gained more control over his powers and he was able to revert back to normal. This time around, Kevin is voiced by Greg Sipes, who is best known for Beast Boy, Chiro, and many other animated characters. He's apparently the dealer for this little setup. And right about here is where things go sideways. Fishface blows their cover, the suppliers turn out to be DNA aliens, and the Omnitrix Oh, the Omnitrix. Okay, so you know how after, like, a few months or so, without using your laptop, you have to install an assload of updates before you can even check your email? Well, apparently, the Omnitrix works like that. Although, 5 months is nothing compared to 5 years. It needs an update.
Ben, watch!
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, in addition to the DNA aliens' supply of abilities that I mentioned before, they can also hawk sticky yellow shit out of their mouths. That's gross. Now, if only they had a fire extinguisher. After a few minutes, the Omnitrix finally finishes installing its update and... Whoa! Guys, I think my Omnitrix is evolving! Whoa! Whoa. Guys, I have an evolved Omnitrix! Or devolved. The new stuff with this thing has its pros and cons. First of all, it's much sleeker and resembles a watch more than the last one did. And instead of a silhouetted display for his aliens, it has a holo display. Which is cool. Unlike mine, which somehow looks bulkier than the last model. I always get the short end of the DNA encoder. Unfortunately for Ben, however, the update changed the entire lineup of alien transformations for him this time around.
Although under the circumstances, this one looks pretty good.
So, using blind luck at this point, he transforms into the most marketable alien at the time in this series, Swampfire. And considering that I actually haven't done this yet, it's hero time!
Ugh, what's that smell? Is that me?
It's you, buddy. Now, before I get on to describing Swampfire, I have to talk about the transformation sequence. There's barely one at all. I hate to keep comparing it to the original series, but you had a transformation scene for each alien that could afford one. Heat Blast was covered in molten rocks, 4 arms busted out for the Tetramant. Each of Ben's aliens got some well-respected and well-animated transformations. Here, we see his cells pulsate and skeleton grow. Woo! Granted, more effort is brought into the transformation scenes later in the series, like he's actually turning into another alien, but for the most part, the first season has some lackluster transformation scenes. They suck. But while the transformation scenes may be shit, Swampfire isn't. He may smell like it, but he's not. Right off the bat, his design is really sleek, being coated in moss and vines. With a bit of flora and fauna designs for his head and shoulders, it looks really cool. His powers are just as great. Like Heat Blast, he can shoot fireballs, and like Wildvine, he can control plants, including growing his own. Plus, he has super strength and can regenerate. He uses this to his advantage in his fight with Kevin, who can cover himself in whatever he absorbs. Nice little touch about his powers. As expected, Kevin loses and becomes their newest party member under Fishhead's instructions. They decide to head after the Forever Knights to their castle, where they encounter a dragon. Wow, I was making all those D&D references, and it looks like it paid off. This leads into part 2, where we see the next alien Ben transforms into, Echo Echo, who can get really annoying with his voice.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, but later in Ultimate Alien, his ultimate form somehow has a less annoying voice. Luckily for us, though, his sonic and duplication abilities more than make up for it. After a fight with a robotic dragon and some heavily armed Forever Stooges, Fishy dies after taking battle damage for Kevin. And I mean dies. He ain't coming back from dissolving into nothing. Before he died, though, he entrusted his mission to Ben, to find out where the alien tech is coming from and why the alien activity on Earth is so high. Solving that would eventually lead him to finding Grandpa Max. After that, they use one of the blasters to track their way back to the DNA alien's hideout, which happens to be in a mineshaft of sorts, and we get something that I don't think we've seen in Ben 10 before, and that's a legit alien invasion. It's a small setup compared to what comes later, but there's platforms, weapon storage, the works. It is here their cover gets blown and Ben transforms yet again. This time into Humongosaur, and the three of them face off against some DNA aliens and a hybrid leader, which shows off just how strong these guys are. Okay, so Humongosaur is a super strong, size-shifting dino man, and he's getting his ass handed to him, literally being thrown around the room by this hybrid. See? The ship takes off, but Humongosaur manages to take it down and destroy it before it destroys anything within 5 miles. Interesting thing to note is that Humongosaur skinned his knee upon re-entry, and Ben's knee was still skinned after he transformed back. I don't think this ever comes back again in the series, but if it does, I'll be sure to bring it up. Ben decides to go through with his mission to find Max, and Gwen willingly decides to help. It's nice to know that these two stayed cool with one another after that summer. Kevin decides to help them as well because he gave his word to Fishface about helping him. Plus, he wants to make up for his mistakes. And he's got a crush on Gwen. And the episode ends with us seeing a small fraction of the hybrid's forces. As a start to the series, Ben 10 Returns is much lengthier than And Then There Were 10, given that this is a 2-part episode. However, it does give us what we were expecting to see from a sequel to Ben 10. Ben's back on another mission, this time a more personal one that leads to an alien conspiracy. His devotion to find Max shows how much they connected through the years, and it also shows us how much has changed in the last 5 years, including Ben's Omnitrix, what's continuing to change with the show, including Kevin as an ally, and what the show has in store throughout the first season. And I'm completely fine with it. Let's see what happens next. Life goes on. Changes for the characters. And beyond. As we continue going through this, we see that Ben isn't the only one going through changes. The most prominent example is in the episode Everybody Talks About the Weather. We see on a farm the police are in the midst of a scuffle with a Pyronite, which if you remember from my last video I said was Heat Blast's alien race. But it turns out to be a kid with powers. This instantly hit me with how cool things were going for this series so far. I mean, a kid with alien powers like that, and potentially more down the line, which there are, given what happens in the later episodes. But for now, this reveal was something epic, and it gave us something of an idea of what was to come. Sort of like in Alien Force. As you'll notice, the kid has an Omnitrix emblem on him, which later turns out to be a plumber's badge, which the Trio's badge from Fishface picks up. They head towards it, thinking it's a signal from Grandpa Max, but they end up running into trouble. Alan escapes from his imprisonment, and the gang eventually comes across him and a fight ensues. Ben transforms into Jet Ray, one of the faster aliens in this new arsenal, and he manages to ground Alan. Ben and Alan get on common ground with one another, while on the other side of the farm, we get a bit of detail regarding the plumber's badge from Kevin.
To keep real plumbers from arresting them for interplanetary trespass. A badge is better than a passport. Humans with alien ancestors are actually pretty common. Most of them have superpowers.
And they say that Alan most likely got it from his dad or grandfather or someone in his family who happened to be a plumber. And that fact is really interesting because it guarantees that there are other plumbers' kids out there. I mean, you know what you're watching, right? They eventually see some disguised DNA aliens setting up weather machines to make it colder for them to work in. Ben turns into Swampfire again and starts kicking some DNA alien tail. With a bit of guidance, Alan takes out the DNA aliens at the top while Ben takes out the weather tower and restores the farm to its normal temperature. Alan being set up as a future ally was a nice touch. It helps to show that Alien Force wasn't just a cool title and that they were actually going somewhere with it. Plus, the idea of alien ancestors giving their descendants powers through genetics is something that will come up later. Kevin even brings up that Gwen's powers are because of aliens and not magic, which gets proved later, but for now, let's move on. Kevin's big score looks like a filler at first glance, but it's an episode with great development for Kevin. We also meet Argent, a dirty little weasel who becomes a recurring character. I hate Argent. Okay, he's more of a porcupine with the spikes on him, but Kevin goes through hell in this episode. He gets double-crossed by Argent, hounded by Ben, and forcibly became a living mine brought on by Volcanus, that guy who teamed up with 6-6 in the episode The Galactic Enforcers back in Season 2 of the original series of Ben 10. Nerd! I know I'm a nerd. And he turns out to be a baby man.
I'm gonna call you Baby Man, Baby Man!
I'll get to that later. Kevin went through all that so that Ben could get another holodisc, which has another message from Max on it. Say what you want about Kevin, but it shows that he wants to change and he's trying to make up for his mistakes. You go, Kevin. We also get another alien from Ben, and this time it's Big Chill. A freaky moth type of alien with intangible abilities and cryo breath that freezes on contact. Big Chill is one of my personal favorites simply because he's quite chilling. The new message from Max explains that he wants Ben to put together a team, because the deeper Ben gets into this, the more backup he's going to need. Which leads into the next episode, showing off Ben's impatience. The trio head towards another plumber's badge where they encounter Gilderoy Lockhart. Michael Morningstar. Hell, he might as well be Glitteroy. Glitteroy may look nice and clean, but he turns out to be a mana vampire, turning girls into basically zombies after feeding off their energy. Which Kevin suspected from the beginning, but Ben blatantly ignored him due to the fact that he was too impatient to put together this team so that he could find Grandpa Max. Well, that and Kevin was jealous of Glitteroy the entire time due to the fact that he was getting handsy with Gwen and attempted to suck out her life energy. It happens. With Glitteroy turning out to be a faker, or at least not as noble as expected, the trio moves on to find other plumbers' kids. One of the major benefits of this episode, aside from a slight horror aspect with what was going on, it shows Ben learning from his mistakes and attempting to grow as a leader. So far, the first season has done a great job with character development, and I highly applaud it. Well, that and we get Chromostone. Another new alien, which I'll get more into when I discuss the aliens in this video, but so far, Chromostone just kicks ass. In the next episode, we finally see Max, but he just manages to escape a DNA alien sneak attack. The trio head towards Santa Mira to find Gwen's brother Ken, but come across more DNA aliens. Safe to say that Santa Mira is another DNA alien nest. Although, we do disgustingly see disguised DNA aliens hawking up that crap out of their throats. Gross. After that scuffle, they find a truck with another DNA alien captured inside. That gives them some information that leads them to a hatchery where...
Grandpa Max, help me.
Ken is being molded. Ew. We see Max already inside, and he comes across the mutated Ken. This horrifying image gives us a bit more detail about the DNA aliens as well. Here's how they work. They take innocent people and put what I can only describe as a face hugger on them, which slowly mutates their DNA and corrupts their minds, turning them into more pawns in the eventual DNA alien hybrid whatever master plan. I mean, really, look at this and tell me you don't see the comparison to Alien. The trio head inside and encounter some more DNA aliens before coming across Ken. And this is where the Omnitrix's upgrade shines. Literally, actually.
What are you doing? I'll let you know as soon as I figure it out.
The Omnitrix manages to detect the damaged genetic code of Ken and restore him to normal. I feel like they were making up shit with you as they went along. They find Max and have a touching little reunion, but it doesn't last long, with the aliens taking the pods and shipping them. To add more into the facehugger theory, Max even calls them xenocytes.
These xenocytes must be destroyed.
While the trio starts bashing alien heads, Ken makes himself useful by smashing the alien pods. They head back to help Max and come across this thing. I reiterate. Ew. Too bad they don't have a fire extinguisher around. They find Max in a rough spot, and he straight up pulls a Carter Grayson and threatens to blow the factory to Kingdom Come at the risk of his life. For some context, I happily give you Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Unfortunately, unlike Carter, Max is nowhere to be found after the big kaboom. And it was no surprise that Max was willing to go this far. I mean, look at what the DNA aliens were doing. Setting up weather machines to basically terraform the Earth, setting up hatcheries to produce their little facehuggers, and kidnapping innocent people and using said facehuggers to corrupt and brainwash them into serving the DNA aliens and hybrids' twisted plan of supremacy. With Max's sacrifice, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin are even more determined to stop the DNA aliens' plans, which leads us into the next episode, which is a bit odd, in my opinion. I mean, think about this. After seeing your cousin, someone you care about in your family, being mutated by a facehugger, and being forced to fight against him, save him, fight against a hybrid, and then watch your grandfather basically nuke himself and the entire factory, would you really want to try and score with a girl you had a crush on? Well, that's exactly what happens here. This is mostly a filler episode that reintroduces Julie as a character and as Ben's love interest. Their first date. They grow up so fast. But being Ben, things do not go according to plan. While at the pier on their date, they get attacked and confronted by a baby galvanic mechamorph, later known as Ship. We also get another new alien from Ben, called Brainstorm.
Brainstorm!
Eventually, they find out what Ship wants, and it's to save a stubborn and dickish galvanic mechamorph in the forest before his ship blows up. And Julie finds out Ben's secret. And she thinks it's cool.
Cool.
I mean, this is just me personally, given that I think it would be awesome if one of my friends or someone I was dating would have superpowers. Actually, I'd be more jealous than anything. But honestly, it's nice to see that not everybody has the same reaction to someone having powers. It's like, run away! Seriously, whose bright idea was that? Overall, this is just a nice, clean episode. It gives us a break from the DNA alien stuff. It gives us a bit of nostalgia for the original series with the galvanic mechamorphs. And, to quote Kevin,
Ben's got a girlfriend, Ben's got a girlfriend.
he does indeed. A cute episode to say the least. But enough about Ben. Who wants to learn about Gwen? Screw you guys, she's a good character. The episode What Little Girls Are Made Of gives us a bit more details about Gwen by introducing her grandmother into the fold. Yeah, who exactly did Max hook up with? Well, her name is Verdona, and she informs Gwen a little bit about her heritage. She's something called an anodite, which explains why Gwen can use magic and constructs like she does. Which her parents knew about, apparently. Go figure. Verdona wants Gwen to go with her to master her powers, but after another fight with Ben and Kevin, Verdona accepts that Gwen wishes to stay on Earth with her family. An interesting episode to say the least. I mean, we get an interesting delve into Gwen's powers, and her grandmother is introduced. We also get a glimpse as to how powerful an anodite is and can be, along with another alien from Ben's arsenal, Spider Monkey, who's, well, a spider monkey. So we've had a good number of episodes so far. Some good writing, some new aliens, some good character development. Certainly something has to come along and put off all the effort that was brought to the table. Continuity! In the episode The Gauntlet, we get something that definitely confused me after rewatching the original series. After a fight with a robot debuting the alien Goop, we cut to Mr. Smoothie, where TJ and Cash are bullying Ben. First and foremost, a round of applause for Ben for putting up with their bullshit and calling them out on it. Given that they're practically just doing the same stuff that they did in, well, grade school. And it just raises the question to me as to why they're doing this when they should know he has the Omnitrix. In the finale to Ben 10, they saw him transform into Accelerate and reveal that he was every single one of those heroes. Now, granted, some plumber tech was used to remove the Omnitrix, and, well, possibly they could have pulled a Men in Black and they neuralized the town of Bellwood, but with something like that being retconned, it just frustrates me. I mean, seriously, They should know he has the Omnitrix, right? I mean, come on. Look, I'm going to Google it now. We're going to go through this and show that they should know he has the Omnitrix.
One eternity later.
Fuck! That finale to Ben 10 was apparently an OVA sort of episode that wasn't meant to be within continuity. Or, it was, but not in the way that we're thinking of. Apparently that was an episode that was supposed to cement Ben's future into the eventual Ben 10,000. Unfortunately, the sequel series decided to retcon that future, and given what happens later involving paradox, time travel, and whatnot, they decided to expand into what's later called an omniverse. So for right now, everyone has no clue that Benjamin Kirby Tennyson is actually an alien-busting badass. Go figure. Regardless of me taking it all too seriously, Ben stands up for himself and calls TJ and Cash out on their bullshit, which grants him a round of applause from everyone and some well-deserved respect from Gwen and Kevin. Attempting to get even with them, they try and wreck Kevin's car, which results in them stealing one of the severed hands of a robot that the group fought at the beginning of the episode, which begins corrupting TJ and turning him into basically a Terminator. Ben saves him in the end, and all's well that ends well. That still irritates me, though, that goodbye and good riddance apparently wasn't the end-all be-all to Ben 10 that I thought it was. Or at least not the one that I expected. But that's all taken care of now, so let us move on. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. The episode itself I don't exactly appreciate too much. I mean, it's somewhat slow, it's got a couple of characters we didn't really care about too much, aside from 3 cameos in the original series, and by the end, it's not really worth watching. Unless, of course, you want to see Kevin get the shit kicked out of him by a kid half his size jacked up on alien tech. That's actually kind of funny. Next is Paradox, the man, and the episode. This is basically an introduction to yet another character that will become important in Ben's future, but also his past, and his present. Let me explain. Paradox is basically a man who got caught in a time rift after a failed experiment and is now coexisting in the past, present, and future. Okay, so imagine a Time Lord, but he has the TARDIS built within his body, giving him the power to go through bits and pieces of time. And his personality is like that of David Tennant, Matt Smith, and Peter Capaldi, all mixed together, and yet is somehow more confusing. To be fair, though, this is another nice distraction from the D and Aliens, which, actually, now that I think about it, did they come back the rest of the season? Hang on. Let me go ahead and check. Nope. All that's left in Season 1 is further development with the Forever Knights after a misunderstanding with the dragon alien creature, which is further developed later down the line. The Knights, not the dragon. The dragon's gone. Additionally, they encounter a duo of plumber's kids who happen to be a kinetoceleran and a tetramant, who go into the Null Void to save some other plumbers they mistakenly threw in there. And then there's the final episode in Season 1, known as X equals Ben plus 2, where they deal with a threat from the war-hungry incursion race, and the mystery alien is finally revealed. Alien X, a celestial sapien that's completely useless if it can't make up its mind. I'll go into more detail later down the line when I get to the aliens in this video, but 3 minds are trapped in that thing. One of compassion, one of rage, and Ben. And it's like a court case scenario where if they can't come to an agreement with one another, they're stuck. After dealing with how much of a risk using Alien X is, the trio stops the incursion threat and save the world. Again. That's like the 4th time they've done that now. Anyway, ending that, Season 1 of Ben 10 Alien Force was decent. It had more good episodes than bad, and additionally, the writing kept itself grounded in its own reality, and the character growth was just phenomenal. It had some great development, specifically for Ben, showing him grow as a leader with guidance from his friends, and it kept the viewers interested with new aliens and new enemies. And with Season 2 smashing its way in shortly afterwards, it was obviously doing something right to keep our attention. Let's continue down this trail and see what Season 2 has to offer. The continuation. Enter Season 2. Season 2 of the Alien Force saga starts us off somewhere weird, with the discussion of alien affairs through a plumber. The trio is confronted by a Magister plumber, stating that the three of them had been impersonating plumber officers, and that there was no proof of any alien activity on Earth. First off, they said that they stopped any and all plumber activity on Earth after Ben defeated Vligax 5 years ago. Even though technically, in Goodbye and Good Riddance, he was blown up, but I'm just gonna let that go now. Which, surprisingly, would lead to any alien activity suddenly spiking. Imagine it. A store at night, with no security, no guards, cameras, nothing. Nada. Someone would attempt to steal from that place, or something of the sort, if there was a small chance, again, no security, a small chance of getting away with it scot-free. I'd think that the same would apply to aliens. Not even letting Ben, Gwen, and Kevin prove their claims of alien activity on Earth, though? Asshole. Secondly, this guy is completely aware that Ben and Gwen are related to the great Max Tennyson, and does not believe that they are holding up his memory by being plumbers themselves, especially when Ben is wearing the Omnitrix again. Dumbass. And finally, he is leaving the planet to allow another equally ranked member of the plumbers to arrive and take over duties of that section of space within the next few months. That is way too long to wait, and by the time the new guy gets here, it'll already be too late. Grade A moron. And he's a bigger idiot later. After Glitteroy, yeah, he goes by Darkstar now and he has a mask. Mystery. Who is it? Who? I don't care. Whatever. I'm still calling him Glitteroy. After Glitteroy convinces a hybrid to frame the trio for attacking him, he believes it!
They attacked me for no reason. They said they were plumbers.
I've heard enough. You three are under arrest.
It's only after Glitteroy reveals his true intentions does Frog Lips here think that Kevin, Gwen, and Ben were true to their word about what they were trying to do. Especially since apparently Glitteroy tipped him off that they were impersonating plumbers. Gee, it's almost like Ben 10 is a hero known throughout the universe for his duties in saving the world, alien races from threats like Vligax, Forever Knights, etc., etc. But no. I'm not going to believe any of that. Instead, I'm going to believe this darkly dressed motherfucker with a mask made of iron-on like he's fucking Dr. Doom and emanating an aura of literal darkness. After Gwen manages to free them and sick a number of DN aliens on Glitteroy, well, I mean, they're aliens, but apparently they've got something of a code of honor, Froggy believes the trio and restores their plumber status and gives Kevin his badge back. Kevin apparently had something of a connection to his father with that badge, which is odd considering back in Season 1 of the original series he ran away from home. Okay. Kevin's backstory is complex, and I'll probably get more into that when Omniverse comes around, but for now, he remembers his father fondly. Again, for now. In the next episode, we get more of an understanding about the hybrids since Ben gets stuck on a deserted planet with one of them. They manage to work together to survive after much infighting. And Ben even uses swamp fire to restore the hybrid's severed arm. Now, given that the hybrids see themselves as supreme beings. He obviously sees this as, I don't know, something of an impurity, so he stays on the planet in self-imposed exile while Ben goes home. But don't worry, he'll be back. In the next episode, we meet Albedo, a Galvan who's stuck in the form of Ben in order to use his makeshift Omnitrix, since the real thing is encoded to Ben's DNA. You know, I never expected Ben 10 to go the route of the evil twin, but it's kinda hilarious. Azimuth eventually shows up and sends Albedo into a self-made punishment, being trapped in a jail cell and stuck in his damaged Ben Tennyson form. Nothing much else to that, except it's kinda cool seeing two Bens with the same powers counter one another out. It's pretty interesting. In the next few episodes, we get one with Ben's alien Big Chill taking over his mind in order to lay its eggs, saving Cooper from another swarm of DNA aliens, forcing him to build machines for them, Julie and Ben rescuing and bonding with Ship yet again, and a silly episode where Ben gets grounded. Each of those episodes are fine in their own right, but the most important thing about that Cooper episode was that apparently the DNA aliens were working on a transdimensional warp gate, and that literally meant something big was coming towards the end. But until then, the next biggest development was in the episode Voided. After receiving a distress call from the plumber's helpers, Manny and Helen, Ben goes into the Null Void in order to save them from the tyranny of a man named Devoid, who happens to be Dr. Animo. Okay, where to begin? First off, you look like you've been working out, Dr. Animo. Good for you. Secondly, this has yet another good moment for Ben. In search of a guy known as the Wrench, Ben fights off Pierce, a walking pincushion, single-handedly without transforming. He didn't win the fight, but still. It shows that Ben is learning not to rely on the Omnitrix to solve all of his problems. It's good character growth, and I applaud it. Thirdly,
why don't you tell me about it over a bowl of my famous centipede gumbo?
Max is back. Who is surprised by this? He pretty much nuked that factory with a Null Void trigger. It wasn't going to kill him as much as send him to the Null Void. Common sense, guys. It's explained that a special mineral called cordomite, or something of the sort, gives Animo his power in the Null Void, and Ben manages to stop it. But as to how Animo got to the Null Void is anyone's guess. Maybe Animo was tinkering around with multi-dimensional doorways after using some of Ben's alien DNA in the previous series, but even that's a stretch. Bottom line is that Animo is defeated, Ben manages to help the plumbers save the Null Void, and the plumbers and Max are going to stick around in the Null Void to help rebuild it and maintain balance. Don't worry though, he'll be back. In the next episode, we have a DNA alien that has amnesia attempting to help Ben stop one of the hybrids' plans. But they fail. But that presents an interesting idea about the mind molding process that the DNA aliens use, and that it's clearly not perfect if this guy managed to retain his knowledge of his former human life. It actually raises a good number of questions that I'm clearly not going to have time to go into. Either way, though, the dude is freed from the DNA alien control thanks to the Omnitrix. You are seriously broken in these first two seasons, aren't you? Oh, spoilers. Following that is an episode where the trio stops a spider monkey alien from giving a power source to the hybrids, and then one where they save a family of alien beasts from DNA alien oppression. And that leads into the two-part finale of Season 2, War of the Worlds. The hybrids' assault on the universe has begun. After conquering the Galvan homeworld, Paradox and Azimuth go to Ben to inform him that it's time to fight the hybrid and the DNA aliens. With the threat of imminent destruction looming at their doorstep, Gwen and Kevin, with Paradox's help, track down the plumber's kids to recruit them, including Alan, Cooper, and even Glitteroy. And no, I'm not going to stop calling him that. Also, Julie and Ship are there to help. But Azimuth doesn't want Ben to fight, given what's at stake should he die. I mean, he explained that the main function of the Omnitrix is to allow aliens to walk a mile in the shoes of other life forms. And given how many life forms are in this thing, it's also capable of resurrecting extinct alien species. And that's pretty heavy. Quite literally, Azimuth puts it,
The Omnitrix is Noah's Ark, and you are Noah.
So it's a pretty big risk letting Ben fight in this war. And the way they illustrate Azimuth's concern is hard to argue with. But Azimuth underestimated Ben's stubbornness, and to help him fight, he unlocks Master Control. With his team assembled and the Omnitrix at peak performance, the group heads back to Los Soledad, and Ben chooses one of its classic aliens, Cannonbolt.
I'm feeling nostalgic.
So am I. Why else would I be doing this? And I mean it when I say this is epic. All the allies Ben met through his journey, all here, kicking ass and taking names, is a sight to behold. Kevin kicking ass, Cooper using his telepathic abilities, Gwen spellcasting like a pro, and Paradox using his broken powers to evade everything. The entire team is doing great. Ben even uses the Omnitrix to restore some of the DNA aliens to humans. Of course the Omnitrix can't do it forever, but they don't have to. They have a technopath. Cooper manages to replicate the restoration beam into weapons for them to use in order to dwindle the number of DNA aliens. I wonder if weaponizing fire extinguishers would have the same effect. Now with a means to even the odds, they continue wreaking havoc until the gate gets activated. Ben tries going way big to destroy the gate, but it's too late. The invasion has begun. With a new plan to break into the control room to force a retreat, we get to see why Kevin loves his car so much.
You work on the car.
Yep.
The three of them blast their way to the control center and they bust in. As expected, a fight ensues until Gwen unleashes her Anodite form and starts losing control of herself until Kevin talks her back to reality. And the Gwevin shippers went nuts. Ben wins his fight with the High Hybrid, but there's something familiar about his voice.
I don't have the authority to call off the invasion. Only the Hybrid Supreme could end the attack. Gotcha, you shape-shifting trog. Oh, Blitznack. Oh, double Blitznack.
That's right, it's Gantu from Lilo and Stitch, Kevin Michael Richardson. I miss him. Just as they're about to get beaten down by another horde of DNA aliens, these squid heads won't freaking quit. Reinforcements arrive in the form of Manny, Helen, and Pierce. Meaning?
Grandpa Max!
It's something of a tearful reunion, to say the least.
And Max Force!
What did I say about calling us that?
I think it sounds cool.
Ben soon thinks to go through the hyperspace jump gate to talk to the hybrids personally. They use ship to go through, and after something of a sky battle, they get captured. After breaking free from their confinement, they make their way to the hybrid command. And they are ugly. And disturbing beyond belief. According to Azimuth, because of their belief in supremacy, they led themselves to inbreeding, which eventually resulted in a lack of resistance to diseases, and then sterility. So basically they fucked up big time, literally, and now they're taking out the fact that they're not as great as they think they are on the rest of the universe. Well, that's not very fair. However, with Ben being Ben, he still wants to help. Which is an interesting tactic for Ben. Considering the genetic damage done to the hybrid, their little suicide mission was the only way they'll feel good about themselves unless they're cured. So in a way, Ben is being diplomatic. Yeah, I didn't expect that either. He uses the Omnitrix to fix them by setting off a giant DNA wave. But these ungrateful bastards aren't even the tiniest bit appreciative of being cured of what is essentially space AIDS. Spades! However, along came Rhiney. Remember the alien that Ben was trapped with on that planet? Yeah, his name is Rhiney, and he manages to convince his fellow hybrid that they can live a new life and survive. They rescind the attack and peace begins throughout the universe. Max blows the gate with a fusion grenade, and the team splits. Max takes the plumber's kids to train under him, Julie goes home, and Glitteroy fled during the chaos. However, that DNA wave resulted in resetting the Omnitrix again. Ben, you have got to stop breaking this damn thing!
Well, here we go again.
But that ends Season 2. The War of the Worlds is over. The Highbreeds are now a peaceful race, and it makes way for a new evil to come and fill the void.
Guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back?
The inevitable return. The vengeance of Vligax. Season 3 starts off with the Galactic Enforcers in peril. Ha! Suck it, you posers! You're fucking pointless! Sorry about that. They're being attacked by Vligax, who has become a dweeb.
The Galactic Code of Conduct says that a conqueror's challenge is between the greatest warrior of the attacking race and the greatest warrior of the planet under attack.
Correction!
You're a neo-maxi-zoom dweeby.
Vligax defeats Ultimo in combat and absorbs his power. We see that he's apparently done this to the champions of 9 other worlds, Ultimo being number 10.
Finally, I am ready to take my revenge.
Okay, timeout. First of all, last time I checked, he was thrown into space by a freaking Taku star. Plus, he survived being blown up before, so I guess it's not that hard to believe that he's back. Secondly, though, this idea of the villain growing stronger here feels a bit weird. In an example like Dragon Ball Resurrection F, we know how powerful Frieza is without any effort, so having him lift a finger during training is terrifying. And while that did come after this, I can't help but make that comparison. Like, that's exactly what they're trying to do for Vligax here. But for some reason, it just doesn't work. Maybe it's partially because it's no longer Steve Bloom doing his voice. Don't get me wrong, James Remar does a decent job, but it's kinda hard not to prefer this.
I am Vligax, and I have come for the Omnitrix.
To this.
Finally, I am ready to take my revenge.
Plus his redesign is not doing him any favors. It feels a bit too cluttered in my opinion. The red and green mimicked the original, but then you add blue and gold on top of that, and it just doesn't look good. It's kind of like my comparison of Darkseid from the Superman series with Darkseid in Justice League War. There's just something about adding more color than needed that makes something look so aesthetically unappealing. Now, before we go on with the episode, let's stick with the topic of fashion, shall we? As you may have noticed, Gwen is now sporting something different compared to her usual attire. The red and black complement her hair color, and the blue jeans are a nice change from that drag old skirt she used to wear. Kevin, on the other hand, is sporting more of a rough and tough look, with motor repair attire. The light blue works well with someone of his complexion. Ben himself has no upgrade nor an excuse. I bring this up because they were wearing the same damn thing episode after episode in the original series, so seeing them change their wardrobe like this is a nice change. Speaking of which, where is Ben?
Sumo Slammers, the motion picture.
Fangirling over his childhood. Now, I'm clearly not one to talk here, but it's kind of irresponsible of him to be doing that when Gwen and Kevin kinda needed his help. Like, they're fighting against an alien right now, and Ben is instead watching another trailer for a movie based off his childhood. Boy, I am really a hypocrite here, aren't I? Still though, this is where Ben started becoming irresponsible. The show began declining fast in the last season of Alien Force, and later in Ultimate Alien as well. Therefore, by the time Omniverse came out, no one really cared anymore. But I'll get to that when I get to that. Ben eventually races over and helps them at the cost of his friend's respect over his arrogance. The plumbers head over to the disturbance where Vligax is basically declaring the challenge against Ben, and he wipes the floor with the rookies, Max putting up more of a fight than usual, but still falling regardless. He informs Ben about Vligax's return, and Kevin figures Ben could use some help.
You know your Omnitrix? Yeah? We're gonna hack it.
That was a drastic choice. Even Azimuth shows up and threatens that he'll regret it if he hacks the Omnitrix. So what happens when he hacks it? That's what I thought. Turns out, in addition to that garage-shattering kaboom, Ben also lost Goop, Spider-Monkey, Chromastone, and Waybig. And Kevin, he got the shittiest end of the stick.
I'm a monster again!
Apparently, like before, the overload of the Omnitrix's energy resulted in him mutating again. Although, instead of him becoming an amalgamation of Ben's aliens, he apparently became something along the lines of Metamorpho. Weird. With mere hours left before he has to face Vligax, Ben starts searching for his missing aliens. Azimuth pops in to say I told you so, and by sunrise they found all but Waybig. Ben heads to face Vligax because he's out of time, and he's actually struggling. Vligax is stronger, faster, and tougher. He even has Omega Beams. How the hell did Vligax get fucking Omega Beams? Luckily, Gwen and Kevin found Waybig, but because the Omnitrix was tampered with, who does Ben turn into?
Chromastone? Oh, man!
And Vligax literally smashes him to pieces. Until he somehow comes back to life in the form of...
Diamond Head!
And since Ben trained with Diamond Head a lot as a kid, he successfully wins given his experience with the alien. Vligax leaves. Max informs them that the plumbers scrambled the TV signals so no one knows it was Ben fighting Vligax. Oh yeah, there were news cameras and everything. And Ben reconciles with Gwen and Kevin. Sadly, the Omnitrix's recharge function has been reset back to the irritating timing of the classic series. As a two-part episode, The Vengeance of Vligax was... disappointing. It didn't give me the same thrill of excitement that I had whenever I saw Vligax back in the classic series. I mean, it's Ben's arch enemy. But instead of getting hyped up, I just felt it was a bit subpar. The changes they made to his design and personality were just too much for me, I guess. The continuation continues. Season 3 and beyond. Now, this is where Ben 10 Alien Force started going downhill in quality for me, as well as a lot of other people. See, with the exception of a few episodes, Season 3 has a good chunk of character regression for Ben, and Vengeance of Vligax was one of the starting points. Ben's overconfidence about his saving of the universe is understandable, but the way it's being portrayed is rather unorthodox. A major part of this is what they wanted to do with the series moving forward. A surprise to no one is that the classic Ben 10 series was great. Ben's arrogance and immaturity made him more likable than other TV characters at the time. It made him more relatable, and it helped make the series feel grounded in its own world. Now, Alien Force was meant to be a continuation of this, showing Ben's progression from a child into a young adult, essentially, and showing his maturity through time, as well as his growing skills as a leader. Now, Season 1 and 2 did that well, but Season 3...
You won't stay mad at me. I'm adorable.
Seasons 1 and 2...
If I'm going to be a good leader, I'm going to need to show better judgment. Whatever we were before, today we're a team. We look out for each other. We win or lose together.
Season 3.
You're completely full of yourself.
Which is forgivable because I'm so adorable.
You see what I mean? Just the tiniest bit irritating. This change becomes much more evident in a number of Ultimate Alien episodes to the point where Omniverse became a sandbox of retcons, and certain writers doing whatever the hell they wanted, including elements of both the classic Ben 10 series and the 16-year-old Ben. Quite literally in the fact that most episodes flip-flop back and forth between young Ben Tennyson and older Ben Tennyson. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get on to Ultimate Alien and Omniverse in their own videos, but for now, let's just continue through Season 3. The next few episodes in Season 3 feature the trio encountering Volcanus again in an underground mine, encountering a troop of gold-pooping aliens in a remote town during their spring break, and Ben starting and solving a planetary war by becoming their target. Did I mention Alien Force was weird? Episode 6 is another Julie episode with the introduction of the Vriedel brothers named Octagon and Rhomboid. Get it? Two stupidly hilarious bounty hunters trying to get shit back for Basil. This jackwagon from Season 1. Ben went to Universal Court to help Julie keep ship, where he somehow wins the case just off his reputation as savior of the universe. Damn it, Ben! And Julie can now armor up with Ship. I love those two together. After that, we have a few episodes, including one where this Herald of Galactus-looking motherfucker cuts off Ben's hand and ends up trapping him in the Null Void single-handedly. Which gives us an idea that the Omnitrix does have an artificial intelligence installed, since it takes control of Ben's severed hand and manages to crawl around like its thing from the Addams Family. A hybrid awakening from suspended animation and trying to blow the planet up since he didn't know about the peace treaty, which puts Max into even more distress after being hunted, blown into another dimension, and now brainwashed and mind-controlled. Seriously, give the guy a break. He's like 70. And the return of Charmcaster. Okay, this I'll actually talk about. Charmcaster returns, and her obsession with Gwen is as strong as Vligax's obsession with Ben. She tries to use Kevin as a means to siphon her essence into mana and absorb it into her being. It's honestly a good episode because Charmcaster's honestly a good villain. It's also a good episode that shows how much Gwen cares for Kevin, which leads into another future episode down the line, but whatever. After those episodes, we get the return of another old enemy. And this one is somehow more confusing than Vligax's return. Ghost Freak is alive. Say, Man of Action and Cartoon Network respectively. Did you just forget about this? Well, maybe it's the same way he survived in Return, but then again, he could be a clone or something, and I honestly don't care anymore. Vligax frees Ghost Freak for information on how to beat Ben 10, but go figure. Ghost Freak double-crosses him and ends up enslaving his entire planet. Ben begrudgingly agrees to help Vligax stop Ghost Freak, and they go to Vligaxia. Yes, that is the actual name of Vligax's home planet. After a fight with Ghost Freak's hive mind, they sneak into Vligax's castle and find him. Ben then gets close to trying to obtain his DNA, and it works?
Are you okay?
Never felt better.
Until it doesn't. Great. Ghost Freak possessed Ben. Vligax fights Ben Freak after Gwen and Kevin get knocked out, and he manages to stun Ghost Freak long enough for Ben to return to normal. So Ghost Freak's back in the Omnitrix, huh? Is history starting to repeat itself again? However, Vligax didn't walk out of this empty-handed. He now knows a few secrets about the Omnitrix for himself. But of course, that comes later. For now, let's repeat a little history of our own. Ben 10 Alien Force had a live-action movie that was released on Cartoon Network in 2009. Ben 10 Alien Swarm. This movie was meant as a sequel to Ben 10 Race Against Time, and even has elements of it that were continued later in the series Ultimate Alien. Whether this movie is truly canon or not, I can't say, but it's a decent watch for any Ben 10 fan. Like Race Against Time, it's not a perfect movie. The acting isn't all that great, and a few tidbits like Max's shirt color can get annoying. The most annoying part about this movie is that we only got 3 alien transformations, while Race Against Time gave us at least 4. I might review the movie itself at some point in the future, but as for right now, it's on ice. The representation of the series is easily the best part of this movie, and the actors do a good job of representing and portraying characters that we know and love. Moving back to the series, we get a couple more filler episodes, including one about Kevin teaming up with Glitteroid to become normal again, only for it to backfire in the end, and the trio encountering an extra-dimensional item that attracts the attention of the Vreedle brothers. Perfectly fine episodes in their own right, but now we get to one of my favorite episodes in the series. Let me tell you something, ladies, gentlemen, and others. We get another alien in this episode. While on a diplomatic mission for a race called the Luodans, their offspring fiddles with the Omnitrix's signal and transforms him into easily one of my favorite aliens in the entire franchise. Wrath is just a treat. I'll let Kevin explain it.
Apoplexians are powerful, argumentative, and extremely aggressive. They believe any problem can be solved by hitting it. It also says that they're not too bright. Dude, did you just growl at me?
Ben ends up stuck in this form the entire episode And while that's an interesting choice, what he ends up doing in this form is fucking hilarious. He fights off a bunch of aliens at a diner, throws the Vrito brothers into outer space, single-handedly messes up an incursion warship, embarrassed Volcanus by smashing his supply of Tadenite.
I'm gonna call you Baby Man, Baby Man!
And he intimidated a pantophage leader by jumping down his throat and threatening to knit his intestines into a frickin' sweater. Wrath is amazing. Plus, he's got a saying.
Let me tell you something, Octagon Vrito! Let me tell you something, Incursion Commander Sangfroid! Let me tell you something, Jared of Pantophage! Let me tell you something, Kevin E. Lemon!
Please don't.
After that gem, we get another episode about the Omnitrix. Enter Primus. After getting information from Ghost Freak, Vligax heads to Primus in order to obtain the Omnitrix, and it soon led to Ben, Gwen, and Kevin being dragged into things. The Omnitrix took full control and brought them to the birthplace of the Omnitrix, Primus. After a bit of fighting, including Azimuth using the Omnitrix, plus a Wrath transformation.
Let me tell you something, Vligax, conqueror of 10 worlds. Azimuth will defeat you.
I love Wrath. Ben tricks Vligax into getting the Omnitrix back and defeats him once again. Squidface isn't too bright, is he? Azimuth even lets Ben keep the Omnitrix despite hacking and damaging the damn thing. Following that, we have a few more episodes before the finale. We have Gwen messing with the time-space continuum and learning a valuable lesson in the process, an episode where Tetrax returns and we learn about his race, the Petrosapiens, and Chromostone. A great episode where Ben appears to be evil and fights off the plumber's helpers in a space station. He's mostly acting, considering that it was just a training exercise, but seeing the rookies work together like that is great stuff. And finally, an episode where Kevin deals with a vendetta against an alien that killed his father. A great episode for Kevin, no doubt. But this is where we enter the finale of Alien Force, the final battle. Albedo uses what he knows about the Omnitrix plus some stolen tech from Azimuth and creates a new device called the Ultimatrix. Guess where that leads? He and Vligax team up in order to obtain the Omnitrix from Ben. What's he up to anyway? Overconfidently fighting off an alien bounty hunter? Sounds about right.
Hey, my overconfidence is one of my most appealing qualities.
No, it's not. Not even close. After getting back on Earth, there's a bit of meta-humor.
It's a sequel to the original show, but they kind of messed it up. It's not very realistic, is all I'm saying.
Couldn't have said it better myself. While Kevin's out on his own, he gets intercepted and abducted by Albedo, who has been following Vligax's plan. I mean, it makes sense. Ben is at his most powerful when his friends and family are by his side. Despite wielding the power of the Omnitrix, he is still at his best when his friends and family are helping him. So, kidnapping them makes complete logical sense. Holy crap. Villains using their heads! Gwen gets abducted next, and soon after is Grandpa Max, but he's too clever and heads over to inform Ben about the trouble. At the same time, Albedo contacts Ben about the situation, and he heads right into battle without a plan. It is here that Albedo shows off what his new Omnitrix can do.
I can also evolve those creatures to their ultimate form. Meet Ultimate Humongosaur!
And this comes into bigger play in Ultimate Alien, but for now, Ben gets wrecked. And he's forced to surrender the Omnitrix to Vligax, ending Part 1. Now that Vligax has control of the Omnitrix, he's going to use it to connect to his bioaids in order to essentially control an army of the Omnitrix's roster. See those things? See all that? That's on you, Ben. Before Vligax can do anything, though, Max busts in and distracts them, giving Gwen a chance to teleport everyone away. And go figure, Vligax double-crosses Albedo. He uses the Omnitrix and the connection to his bio-soldiers in order to overpower and capture him. Now, a single Humongosaur might not stand a chance against its evolved form. But 100 Humongosaurs, that'll do something. Although the constant chanting is a bit weird.
Humongosaur! Humongosaur! Humongosaur!
Back with the plumbers, Ben has a breakdown after losing the Omnitrix, despite the fact that there's been at least 5 instances now where he has learned that he doesn't need it. Things get mulled over, but I kinda get tired of this after a while. Azimuth gives Ben a bit of a pep talk that gets his heart back into it. The gang teleports onto Vligax's ship, and Ben sets off the Omnitrix's self-destruct function as a means to intimidate Vligax. Vligax doesn't buy it, so this happens. But now that the Omnitrix is toast, this happens!
I've got a headache like you wouldn't believe. What?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, once the Omnitrix was destroyed, it was only natural that the connection between it and Kevin would cease, therefore restoring Kevin to his human form. Boy, am I lucky this thing didn't get self-destructed.
Normal?
Let me show you.
Correction. This is when the Gwevin shippers went nuts. Vligax gets right back up and destroys the control console after locking in Bellwood as its collision course. Gwen, Kevin, and Max work together to get past Vligax to try and alter the ship's course, while Ben confers with Albedo into giving up the Ultimatrix. Albedo isn't stupid and gives it up. After fixing the color, Ben uses his new Ultimatrix to fight off Vligax as
Ultimate Swamp Fire!
Max steers the ship into the water before it can hit Bellwood, and Vligax takes on his true form. A hentai monster! Ben escapes from the explosion, somehow. All we see is Ben changed forms as he was getting eaten, so honestly anything could have happened down there. And the group basks in their glory, and the episode literally ends with them in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, not the best of endings, but a decent two-part episode. Especially with Ben taking as big a risk as he did with destroying the Omnitrix. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up Season 3 of Alien Force. So yeah, let's move on. From Zero to Hero. New aliens, new allies. Now it's time to go over some of the new aliens as well as some old ones that Ben used to save the day. But additionally, I'll also be talking about Gwen, Kevin, as well as the other Plumber's helpers, considering that they had more of a prominent involvement in here, plus they've all got their own powers that I would also like to talk about. Let's start things off with the Plumber's helpers. The first is Manny Armstrong, a Tetraman human hybrid voiced by Cyborg from Teen Titans.
Shotgun!
I've gone over Tetramans in the last video, but he's basically super strong and super durable despite his human DNA and his lost hand at the hands of Devoid. He's a bit immature at times, but that's where Helen comes in. Helen Wheels is a Kinetoceleran human hybrid, with all the speedster abilities with little restraint from her human DNA. Between her two brothers, she's definitely the voice of reason and tries to maintain her level head when dealing with these various situations. Next is Pierce Wheels, whom I said before is a human pincushion. More specifically, he's a human hybrid with something unclear. Something possibly relating to Argit due to their similar abilities. Thorn generation, sleep-inducing quills, and projectiles. Despite us never knowing what his other half is, he is obviously the most mature one out of the three of those Plumber's helpers, and he is easily one of my favorites. Next is Alan, whom I went over a little bit with when he was introduced. Like the others, he's a human hybrid, but a hybrid with a Pyronite. Obviously. When he transforms into his Pyronite form, he has pyrokinesis, limited terrakinesis, flight, and all matter of immunity to fire, as well as some limited ice immunity. The Plumber's helpers are some of my favorite characters in this, considering how unique of an approach they took, the writers took, with these characters. Now, what they do with them later in Omniverse is a bit confusing, but again, that's for another time. For now, let's go on about Gwen's abilities for a bit. As revealed in What Little Girls Are Made Of, Gwen is an Anodite through her grandmother's alien DNA, but appears human because of her family. What we thought of as magic was actually alien powers in the previous series, which I am conflicted about. After all, adding something like magic into a series is always a risk due to the question like, how are you doing that? Who cares? It's magic. But on the other hand, making her powers alien makes a lot of sense considering everything else that they do in this series. I personally see it as expanding on what was already set up through the alien species and hinting at what might have been, but you're all entitled to your opinions. Despite that, with what we know about Charmcaster as well, magic is still clearly a thing and might have something of a connection to Anodites, but that's over speculation, I guess. Comment below about your thoughts about this. In the meantime, let's go on to Kevin. Turns out that Kevin was genetically known as an Osmosian, which explains why he's able to absorb energy, and of course, as it's later stated in Ultimate Alien, apparently when Osmosians absorb too much energy, they start to go a little bit crazy, which is why back in Ben 10, when he absorbed the powers of the Omnitrix, he went a little low. He gets his powers from his father, and learning about him as well as what's going on with his development in this series is really freaking fantastic. As you might already know, Kevin can absorb the essence of anything he touches. He touches metal, he becomes protected by a metallic shell around him. His mutation in Season 3, however, brought back what was already established in Season 1, as I mentioned, with him going a little bit crazy. However, it's different here. The first thing to note about the difference is that he didn't absorb any of the alien DNA in the Omnitrix. He instead ended up getting something of a fused mutation out of everything that was in that garage after it fell on top of him. The second thing is that when the Omnitrix was destroyed, it reverted him to his human form. It's confusing to the point where something that he willingly absorbed transformed him into a amalgamesh of alien DNA, which later he is able to control and transform him back into human, but when it's unwilling, like what happened when they hacked the Omnitrix at the end of Vengeance of Vligax Part 1 and the explosion that buried him in the garage, somehow makes him unable to turn back unless the cause of the explosion is destroyed.
Everybody got that?
I'm not entirely sure how that works or what they were thinking, but whatever. We've gone over Gwen, Kevin, and the Plumber's Helpers. Now let's get into the aliens. The first alien in the newest lineup is Swampfire. Swampfire is a Methanosian and was one of Ben's go-to aliens for any situation. I mean it, this alien practically has everything. Chlorokinesis, pyrokinesis, enhanced strength, speed, jumping, flexibility, and durability, along with elasticity, regeneration, sleeping spores, seed generation, and methane projection. Swampfire is practically a gardener's worst nightmare. The second new alien was Echo Echo, a Sonarosian with duplication, sonic manipulation, and projection, along with echolocation. Someone with echolocation could actually be pretty useful. Sadly, Ben doesn't end up using him as much as he should, much like a number of other aliens in this list, but we're getting there slowly. Next is Ben's answer to everything, Humungosaur. For every instance where classic Ben tried to turn into forearms, it's doubled with how many times Ben tries to go Humungosaur here. Humungosaur is a Vaxasaurian, meaning he's a humanoid dinosaur. His abilities include super strength, durability, agility, jumping, a powerful roar, and his well-known size shifting, which lets him grow to a certain point. Humungosaur was the next best thing compared to forearms, and honestly, who can argue with that? Following Big H is Jetray, one of the fastest aliens in Ben's arsenals. Aerophibians are apparently badass. As Jetray, Ben is equipped with enhanced speed, flight, underwater breathing, neuroshock blasts, and he can survive in space. I call Jetray one of Ben's fastest aliens because when he pushes Jetray to his limits, he is easily capable of moving past the speed of sound and light. Next is Big Chill, and Necrophrygians are terrifying. Cryomothra here is equipped with cryokinesis, freezing touch, breath, and blasts, along with flight, intangibility, underwater breathing, temperature resistance, and space survivability. Damn, Ben, you've got 2 aliens that can breathe in space! Don't take them for granted! Chromastone is next, and he shares a few similarities with Diamond Head, but they're 2 different species. While Diamond Head is a Petrosapien, Chromastone is a Crystal Sapien. Completely understandable. While shy of any Petrosapien abilities, Chromastone shines, quite literally in some cases, by making use of his energy absorption abilities. He can also redirect said energy. He can also generate his own light, create force fields out of ultraviolet light, fly, and he's able to survive in space, plus immune to radiation on top of that? Why doesn't Ben use Chromastone more often? So after the most underutilized alien ever is Goop. A polymorph with shape-shifting abilities, along with acidic slime, regeneration, density alteration, flexibility, and strength. The one weakness for Goop is his anti-gravity disc on top of him, which, as Ben showed us in the episode Primus, there's a button that can turn off his artificial gravity. Next in line is Spider Monkey, an arachnochimp, get it, with all the powers you'd expect. Reflexes, agility, dexterity, strength, web generation, wall crawling, acrobatics, sticky fur, and hearing. Okay, I'll admit, I didn't expect those last two. Spider Monkey, though, he's not as utilized as much as he should be, alongside Chromastone and Goop. Oddly enough, the cerebral crustacean known as Brainstorm is more utilized than Spider Monkey. No surprise why, though. I mean, super intelligence, strength, durability, dexterity, technokinesis, force field generation, telepathy, and electrokinesis. I'd choose this smart-ass crustacean over the chimp, too. The last of Ben's new aliens is Alien X. Arguably the most powerful and equally the most useless. Celestial sapiens are omnipotent reality breakers, but they can only do that if they make up their three minds. I went over a bit of that beforehand, but here's a recap in case you missed it. Serena is the voice of love and compassion, while Bellicus is the voice of rage and aggression. Ben is stuck in the middle as the voice of reason. Without the three of them deciding on something, they are completely useless.
Phenomenal cosmic powers!
Itty-bitty mind space. Now, if only these three could decide on a freaking pizza topping, Ben could do practically anything with Alien X. Aside from that, though, his design kicks ass. The next one is one of the new aliens Ben received after the Omnitrix rebooted again after the War of the Worlds. Lodestar is a Bio-Savortian, with his main ability being magnetokinesis. He can also generate magnetic force fields, levitate, and regenerate. Lodestar isn't used that much to my knowledge, however, he is quite useful. After that is an alien unlocked in the Alien Swarm movie, which later became canon in Ultimate Alien, but I'm mentioning it here regardless. And that's Nanomech. Basically a super small hybrid between human DNA and nanotechnology. Nanomech is easily the least utilized alien in the series, but then again, how often can you make use of an alien with bioelectrokinesis, flight, adaptability, and the power to go subatomic at a whim? Now, I've already gone over Cannonbolt, Upchuck, and Waybig in the previous video, so I don't think I have to talk about those guys. Besides, they're not really utilized that much in this series either. But if you missed it, Cannonbolt is an Arborian Pelorota, which is basically a bulletproof, super fast roly-poly that can break through anything if Ben gets fast enough. Upchuck, on the other hand, is a Gormad, which gives him the ability to eat junk and belch explosive loogies as a result. This particular version of Upchuck and Alien Force is literally one of the different species of the Gormads on their home planet. So I guess that is something important to talk about. Besides, this version has like 6 tongues as opposed to the other one, which had 4. Which brings up an interesting thought about multiple types of the same alien in the Omnitrix. Huh. And then there's Waybig, which is a Toku star, which is a giant on a more cosmic scale. For more information regarding Cannonbolt, Upchuck, and Waybig, please check out the previous video. Now, while Ghost Freak was added back into the roster of the Omnitrix, Ben technically never transformed into Ghost Freak in this series, so that gives me a pass on that one. So I guess that means there's only one alien left, and that's Wrath. Wrath is an Apoplexian and looks like a humanoid tiger. Go ahead and call him El Tigre if you want to, because for some reason in Omniverse, there is a Spanish-speaking version of him in the Omnitrix that looks like a luchador. I don't know why. He has a personality similar to Wolverine in that he's always raring for a fight. His powers include his strength, durability, agility, reflexes, like a cat, claws, like a cat, stamina, jumping, and a powerful roar. Example? See? There you go. Wrath's brutish brain often results in him seeing every possible solution to a problem by hitting it. Plus, this results in Wrath occasionally getting into arguments with inanimate objects, and that's kinda hilarious.
Let me tell you something, stupid Wrath-sized hole!
Wrath will destroy you!
I mean, it's no secret that Wrath is one of my favorite aliens. Although it does make an interesting point that no other alien, to my knowledge, actually affects Ben's personality the way Wrath does. So, now that we've cleared up all of Ben's new aliens, and Azimuth help me when I get to Ultimate Alien and Omniverse, let's proceed to the next segment. It's hero time! The best of Ben's alien force. I can't believe this. I can't believe this freaking happened. I somehow had a more difficult time deciding my favorite and least favorite episodes of Alien Force than I did the original series. I mean, I don't know how. I just don't. Most of these episodes are decent with only minor problems. But thinking about them long enough triggers the Iron Man 3 effect in me, which just results in me overthinking things and considering these episodes worse than they actually are. So, I might be talking out of my ass with this first part. Once again, take some of these with a grain of salt. There's no real bad episodes, in my opinion. There are just some that I will skip and choose not to watch. Which I guess technically does mean bad. See, I've already started talking out my ass. However, with the best episodes, these are some of the best episodes for sure that I highly recommend. Either way, we're starting with the worst like before so that we can end on a good note here. Number 5 worst. Grounded. From Season 2. This episode is dumb. Funny, but dumb. Ben gets grounded after his parents see what he does with the Omnitrix and how much trouble he gets into with it. Apparently his dad forgot that he helped take out Vligax and retcons. Fuck. Nitpicks aside, this episode is just silly. It's just a dumb and silly idea. Come on, Ben. Come on. Gwen eventually gets herself dragged down with Ben, leaving Kevin to face off against some DNA aliens alone. But in the end, Ben's parents learn how big his responsibilities have become as savior of the universe. Come on, Ben. Just come on. Number 4 worst. The Vengeance of Vligax, Parts 1 and 2, from Season 3. This is mostly due to the continuity issues that I personally have with the series, but aside from that, it's just an underwhelming episode. We get only a scarce idea as to how powerful Vligax is now with all of his new powers, and while it does pay off during the fight with Ben, my major problem is that this feels so different from the Vligax we know in the past. Call it favoritism or petty if you want, but that's just how I feel. Additionally, Ben's attitude in this episode is just irritating. His overconfidence is just... it severely pisses me off.
But you won't stay mad at me. I'm adorable.
Number 3 worst. Birds of a Feather, from Season 2. Pointless! Seriously, I get trying to connect with the species inside the Watch like you did with Tetrax, but this was entirely pointless. Sure, the trio stopped another hybrid plan to conquer and destroy, but this episode is not needed. And Simeon is a fucking jackass! Number 2 worst. If All Else Fails, from Season 3. You're roughly 10 episodes too late, buddy. The idea of a hybrid failsafe is fine and all, but wouldn't they have shut down all those things if peace broke out between the hybrids and the rest of the known universe? And come on, man, he's gotten assaulted, kidnapped, blown up into another dimension. I mean, do we really need to add mind control into this? Give Max a fucking break. I know I'm scraping at the bottom of the barrel here, but just wait till we get to number 1. And the number 1 worst episode of Ben 10 Alien Force is The Gauntlet from Season 1. Yeah, not everything in Season 1 was bliss. Deja vu. TJ and Cash's development here with their antics and attitude being bashed by Ben is great and all, but the rest of the episode is kind of lame. I find it boring and just a tad cliched by the end of it. I just like to skip this episode. Now on to the best. My top 5 personal favorite episodes of Ben 10 Alien Force in 3, 2, 1. Number 5 best. Kevin's big score from Season 1. Making Kevin a good guy was one of the show's best decisions. This was the first real big step in Kevin's development, and it shows. The lengths that Kevin is willing to go for Ben and Gwen in this to help them find Max is admirable. I mean, he goes through hell in this. I really don't give this episode enough credit, but this is a great first step in Kevin's change of heart and his decisions in future episodes. Number 4 best, Ben 10 Returns, parts 1 and 2 from season 1. This was clearly a great way to start things off, giving us a look at the characters we knew and loved 5 years later, setting up the plot for the first season, a new Omnitrix, new aliens, new allies, and new enemies. It was all just a great beginning. Not to mention it flows very smoothly. With everything that they packed into this episode, you'd think it would be oversaturated, but it isn't. And I love the banter between these characters after 5 years. It just feels so organic. Number 3 best, War of the Worlds, parts 1 and 2 from season 2. The finale to season 2 had to be up here. I mean, the stakes were so drastically high and it was on such a grand scale. Ben leading his team of superheroes he met along his journey, plus Glitteroy, really showed how much Ben had grown in the past few episodes as a leader, and everyone shines in this episode. Cooper, Gwen, Paradox, Alan, Kevin, even Azimuth. And the way they solve the issue is something of a deus ex machina. However, it shows great development for Ben in that he finds a solution to a problem aside from just punching it. Number 2 best, Primus from season 3. Any episode that delves deeper into the lore of this fucking thing is a win in my book. The designs for this planet are phenomenal. How Ben manages to win against Vligax shows off more of his clever nature, and seeing Azimuth attempt to fight off Vligax is just amazing. It's a good episode, but I liked one other just a little bit more. Okay, a lot more. Aside from that, though, here are a few honorable mentions, because while these episodes might not have made this list, they're still worth watching and discussing.
If you get involved, I promise, Grandpa Max isn't the only one who's gonna get hurt.
So, a helper knows my name, but not for long. You again. I should have eliminated you when I had the chance.
Your mistake. I'm saying that it's up to someone to protect this planet. And like it or not, I think it's up to us.
We'll talk again soon.
I think we just met our grandmother.
Everybody back away from the glob. Not you.
Come on, man! I apologize for teasing on you!
Ben Tennyson, give me Chromastone!
This much is true. I have changed. And now, I must pay the price.
Where is Ben Tennyson?
And the number 1 best episode of Ben 10 Alien Force is Con of Wrath from season 3. This episode is hilarious. Very opinion-based, I know, but the debut of Wrath into the series is such a highlight in my eyes. With how much I admired Ben's development in using his creative and clever nature to solve problems aside from punching it, seeing a transformation that does the exact opposite after 3 seasons of grand development somehow is hilarious. And I probably sound like a fucking hypocrite for it. I don't care, though. Wrath punches, slashes, and screams his way through this mission, and I love every minute of it. I could listen to Wrath all day. Now, before we clock out here, let's go over a couple last-minute things. Alien Force was not as good a follow-up to the classic series as it could have been. The first 2 seasons were a lot stronger in writing, but there were still a few gems among Season 3. The direction they took with these characters surprised me, and years later I find them intriguing. While it's not perfect, there's still a lot to like about a series like Ben 10. Specifically those episodes I mentioned as honorable mentions, I highly recommend them. As I said, Alien Force wasn't perfect. Season 3 was supposed to be completely different than what we eventually got. It was meant to consist of ideas that later came into play in Ultimate Alien, and the obvious changes in character for Ben especially can be rather irritating. But look past that, and this series easily gets a B+. And considering what follows after this, that's not too bad at all. And so that ends our analysis of Ben 10 Alien Force. Now if you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And of course hit that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of our future content. And there's my cue. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys when we inevitably get to Ultimate Alien. Farewell.